Why the Feast of Trumpets is on October 7th to 8th in 2021. Hi Watchman community. This video is being made as a result of research I did to find out why many are saying that the Feast of Trumpets holiday, and thus the start of the Jewish New Year, has been delayed a month in 2021, and some are therefore setting expectations of a rapture in this time frame. There seem to be different ways of deciding how the beginning of the new year is calculated, and before I start I have to make a distinction about the difference between the biblical or religious New Year and the modern civil New Year, as they are not the same. The biblical or religious New Year begins on Nisan 1, which occurs in the northern hemisphere season of spring, whereas the civil New Year as observed by modern Israelis begins in the fall or autumn. Bear in mind that the explanation I am giving here is only one interpretation, and as there are other ways of calculating the calendar, please don't take offense if this is not one that you agree with. I myself am not committed to one definition or another, just exploring the delayed by 1 month option in this video. Okay, so this definition, and the graphics that you will see on this video, came from a website called truthforyahweh.org, owned by a gentleman called Rich Lobert, who also has a YouTube channel by the same name of Rich Lobert, and I am indebted to him for the excellent calendar graphics you see here. I have tried to email Rich to gain his permission to use these graphics in this video, but the email address published on his website did not work, and although I have messaged him through the comments section of one of his videos, and also tried an alternative email address he gave in the comments section, I don't know if he is going to reply before I upload this video. If I get a reply back from Rich and he says I can't use his excellent graphics, I will take this video down, but in the meantime I will provide a link to both his YouTube channel and his website below, as he is a very interesting speaker on the subject of the new moon and how it is used to calculate the beginning of the new year. So, here's the way Rich has defined the beginning of the new year, and I am sure there are many who use a similar definition. To illustrate, you can see that in the March and April pages of Rich's calendar, there are 2 days you have to pay attention to. The first is the Spring Equinox, which usually occurs around the 20th of March on the Gregorian Calendar, give or take a day or two, and in fact that is when it falls in 2021. The second day to pay attention to is the first new moon following that Spring Equinox, because the day after that new moon becomes the first day of the new year, according to this calendar definition. Now, there are some who have a different definition, which says that the closest new moon on either side of the spring equinox is the new moon we use to calculate the new year, but that doesn't make sense for an observed calendar, which is what they had in biblical times, because you can't observe the new moon before the spring equinox and then wait until the next new moon and then decide when you are going to start your new year, based on the relative spacing of those two new moons relative to the spring equinox, because people need to know immediately when to start the holiday, and it's already too late to have your New Year holiday if you decide that the new moon before the spring equinox was actually the correct New Year date. So for practical reasons, you have to just go with the first new moon after the spring equinox. The next question that a lot of people would be asking is, what is the spring equinox? I'm glad you asked. The word equinox comes from the Latin, meaning equal night, and is in fact the day on which the day is the same or equal length as the night. I don't know how they figured that out before they had clocks, but I think it had something to do with using sundials and how they cast their shadows. If anyone knows the answer to that question, please drop a comment below. Okay, so if you look at the calendar pages I have displayed in the background of this video, you will see that the new moon after the spring equinox fell on April 12th to 13th, and usually the human observer can't see that sliver of the new moon until the second day, so April 14th became the first day of the year, Nisan 1 or Aviv 1, which is an older name you will see used on the biblical calendar preferred by Rich Lobert, who owns the Truth of Yahweh website. So how does all this add up to a 1 month delay compared to the modern Hebrew calendar you will find on most Jewish websites? Here's the thing, the modern Jewish calendar is not an observed calendar, meaning that they calculate the new year in advance, not based on the new moon as it is observed, but rather based on a mathematical formula, which sometimes will conflict with the observed calendar, as it in fact does in 2021. That's the simple answer to that question, and you can do your own research to find out what that mathematical formula is and why it sometimes differs from the observed calendar. The upshot of all of this is that in 2021, whereas the nation of Israel went by a calendar that saw the Feast of Trumpets holiday occurring on the 6th to 8th of September, the biblical observed calendar, which is based on actually observing what is happening in the heavens with the spring equinox and the new moon, gives us October 7th to 8th as the actual holiday, with the beginning of the holiday starting on sundown on the 7th, as is the way with the Jewish calendar, based on what God said in Genesis, where he defined the order of the night occurring first, then the morning, and that was the first day. In other words, the day begins at sundown. Now, the $64,000 question, as they used to say on that old game show, is, does this mean that the rapture is about to happen in a few days' time? Maybe, is the only answer I am going to give. There are some watchmen and women who believe very fervently that the rapture has to happen on the Feast of Trumpets, and that's a valid belief, for a number of reasons I won't go into. But I don't know for sure, so will only say, yes, I hope so, and pray so, because the way the world is heading, things are going to get very difficult for people of the way, the truth and the life, in very short order. The way this world is being governed relies on a lot of lies being bandied about for political reasons, and unfortunately we know from history that when this happens, nothing good is being planned for the ordinary people. But I digress, and I will say that there is another sign that points to a rapture on October 7th to 8th, and that is the second sign of Revelation 12, the red dragon sign, which I believe is the Draconid meteor shower, and that also is occurring on October 7th to 8th this year, with the peak activity to occur on the 8th. Once again, if you like this content, please like and subscribe, and if the Lord doesn't tarry, see you on the other side.